So you're familiar with being in that space where things are, you know, coming and going, and you get visuals, and things can pop up from your past, and you can have all sorts of visions and things that come up, right? And some are beautiful and some can be traumatic, but if you keep your awareness and you just look at it and open your heart to it, you can clear it. Beautiful. And these are good tools for that. I discovered them 23 years ago. I'm 53 now, and in my 30s, I was finishing up my PhD in biochemistry and molecular biology, and I was brought to a underground rave party out in the desert in Southern California, and started trying different things, and it just changed it just completely changed my perspectives of reality, of what was real and what wasn't. And as a biochemist, I started looking at what's actually happening. What's the biochemistry? What am I putting in my body? What's it doing to me? And I got really passionate about it, and I discovered a lot of really interesting things, and that led me to all sorts of other disciplines, including yoga and meditation and NLP and hypnotherapy and shamanism. And I discovered some very powerful and very interesting uses. I actually developed a therapy for how to use these medicines to clear the mind of unconscious content. And eventually the mind cleared completely, and it just reset itself. And when it reset itself, my intuition came on. I immediately knew what I am, why I'm here, what everything's about. It just instantly became clear. But it took me, well, almost 1,000 journeys in 18 years of exploring to figure that out. Finishing up my PhD while I was working, while I was learning hypnotherapy and NLP, while I was studying a bunch of things. And I can tell you honestly that there were a lot of times where I was just completely lost and I didn't know what was real, until I discovered one thing. And it's the one thing that for me is the most important thing anyone needs to know. And that's what I started sharing. That's what I share freely with anyone who wants to know. And that was the point of my post on the Plat page. And it goes like this. The course that I gave you the link to will describe it in more detail. But here's the most important thing, if you're interested, from my experience, that I can happily share with you. You ever play with a walkie-talkie, like a two-way radio? Sure, right? So the battery's charged, the antenna's nice and straight, it's on in scan mode, and it can receive from all the frequencies it's designed to receive. That's correct, right? And then you press the talk button. And as soon as you press the talk button, even if you don't say anything, it stops receiving, right? Does that make sense? Okay. So our human body, as a biologist, I can tell you, our nervous system is wired in a similar way. So we have two modes. One is reception mode and one is transmission mode. Mm-hmm. The transmission mode is every time our mind is on, we're in transmission mode. Whether it's a thought, a belief, an idea, a hope, a dream, a fear, a stress, a dream, we're in projection mode. And that's great because we can project all sorts of amazing things. I'm not saying anything bad about that. That's part of how we function. And when we manage to stop pressing all the on buttons of our mind, we instantly enter into reception mode. And the way that our bodies are living, our thinking, feeling bodies can navigate through existential reality, like through the physical world and whatever is out there, independent of us. It can do it. It can receive all the information when we're in reception mode. And when we're in projection mode, we're projecting our dreams, our hopes, our ideas, our visions, all the power of our mind on top of reality. And in the East, the mystics call that Maya. It's the projection of our mind. Right? Does that make sense? Yes. So you can be in reception mode and you can be in projection mode. Is no, we can't. Initially we can. Eventually we can. When we can master being fully present as adults, mind off and present, we can start sending light signals out. But what happens is that Our bodies are designed to navigate through reality, and our minds are typically on all the time, especially as modern beings. And it turns out that our body has a mechanism to temporarily, for a split second, shut our projector off. And that happens at the top of every breath and at the bottom of every breath. So our entire lives from birth to death, we can be thinking nonstop. But at the top of each breath and at the bottom of each breath, for a split second, we get a snapshot of reality. And that's how we navigate through reality. That's how we can drive home and not remember if we made a left or right at Main Street. Or we could be driving and suddenly swerve out of the way and almost get in an accident, swerve out of the way and not even remember seeing it. It's because we have an unconscious awareness mechanism that's on. And that unconscious awareness mechanism that's on is only on when our minds are off. It's of extreme value. It's like probably the most important thing a human being can do as an adult is to learn how to turn this off and let that awareness awaken. Right. But there's an unconscious mechanism that will keep you on the road. That's why you can drive your car and not have to really pay attention. You can be like listening to music and dance, and singing along and thinking about your business, your work, your lover, whatever, your kids, whatever the story is. And then you still get home. You don't crash. So there's a mechanism that's built in and it's already there. And the course will teach you how to tap into that. And awakening that mechanism is like the ultimate of superpowers anybody can have. It's really worthwhile doing it. And that's what I teach people how to do. So how does that tie into the medicines, especially something like ayahuasca? Well, ayahuasca, the DMT is the substance that our brains use to feel our dreams as being real. So whatever image we're receiving, we believe it's real. We feel it real in our bodies because there's a certain amount of DMT being released into our bloodstream, into our nervous system. So when you drink ayahuasca or you smoke DMT, you get an overload of this amazing chemical, which is already part of our system. And it makes everything in our mind, everything in our unconscious, our subconscious, our conscious mind, it projects it into the most realistic dream you can have. But it's a dream. It's a real dream. All life is experienced through a series of images. And then on top of that, we project dreams. They're the same pixel quality, so we can't tell the difference. That's why people say, life is a dream. Well, life isn't a dream. Your body is physically navigating through an existential reality, and our mind is projecting dreams on top of that. We have dreams when we're asleep. We have dreams when we're awake. We have dreams when we're at a football game. We have dreams when we're, watching a movie, and we have dreams when we're taking psychoactives. So it's really valuable. It's really interesting to know this, because if you know how to just take a breath or two or three and stop the projector, you can experience existential reality with full present conscious awareness. What you're connecting to is the collective content of your mind. And mind goes back 100,000 years or more. So you're collecting to the layers of mind that we humans have been accumulating throughout our lives since, I don't know, since forever, since like the Big Bang or something like that. So you can tap into and relive these deep layers of your unconscious. I've gone back to so many different experiences, including being animals, including being in battles, in wars, including being different people. And they're all real layers of your mind. But the fact doesn't change that you're sitting in a room drinking a medicine. Your body is there, but you are projecting the content of your unconscious mind. And it's vast. It's really vast. And to know the content of your mind, especially the unconscious mind, is how you know yourself. What you were saying before about how you're on a mission to know yourself, You know how many fingers you have. You know what is good to eat. You know what you need to do, if you catch a cold. And if you also know the content of your thoughts, of your mind, of your unconscious programming, of your beliefs, of the stories that you imprinted as a child from your parents, from your teachers, from your grandparents, from society, all the way back to, I don't know, Jesus, Moses, Adam and Eve, the first monkey that fell out of a tree. Something happens with your mind when you know it completely. And the thing is that when you think, I want to go back and remember something, you can only remember back to the verbal part of your language, of your life. So you can only go back to like maybe when you're 3 years old. You might have some memories of when you're 2 or 3, but usually, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then you start remembering. Let me define something for you. Let's define dreaming as thinking with pictures, thinking with images. Okay?
Okay.
And let's define thinking as dreaming with words and numbers. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So when you think, when you say, I think, therefore I am, what you're doing is you're using words, and you can't use words to go back to when you were 6 months old because you didn't know any words. You were just like, ma, ma, da, da. Like there's no cognitive process. Only around age
Yeah,
5,
sure.
right? 3, 4, 5, you begin to say, mine, right? I'm Rafael, right? So to be able to go back, and the thing is that in the first 5 years of our life, it's understood that we imprint about 80 to 90% of all of our behaviors unconsciously, and then we just project them our entire lives. Now, our parents, our grandparents, our great grandparents, yeah, they did the best they could, but they weren't the most present, awakened, healthy people in the universe. We've had wars, we've had all sorts of challenges and problems. We're silly monkeys that fell out of trees a long time ago, and slowly we've been evolving our intelligence. Slowly we've been evolving our language. Slowly we've been evolving our culture, and we've accumulated mistakes. And those mistakes drag along with us. And because we have these mistakes that drag, these limitations that drag along with us, we need to go and do something like a UPW or a Date with Destiny. We need to meet someone like Tony to be able to learn the techniques, to be able to empower ourselves, to power through the limitations that are in our unconscious. Right? You can learn hypnosis, you can learn timeline therapy, you can do a bunch of things. You can learn how to make your move, and you can step up, and you can force yourself to have a mind that functions the way you want it to. But there's something tremendously valuable and useful once you know how to do that, in going back to your pre-verbal unconscious layers of your mind with full conscious awareness and clearing them out of all limiting content. Because once you do that, you never ever have to force yourself again. You delete all the negative, you cut all the anchors, you stop dragging. And the medicines are good for that. You can set an intention to go back and experience your limitations, to clear your traumas, and then go put yourself into an intentional dream state. Let the dream come up, and with your full conscious awareness, relive it. And when you're in the middle of it, you take a breath and you become fully present, and it instantly disappears. It shows you that it's just a mental projection. And when you know that your traumas, your fears, your insecurities, your hatred, your shame, your guilt, all the shit that we imprint as kids from, the last 5,000 years of humanity with thousands of wars, it changes the gestalt. It changes the weight of it. Suddenly you realize, wait a minute, I got a lot of junk in here, but it's just projections. It's only as real as I want to make it. And that's the most powerful use for these medicines, is to go back and live all of these things and go, wow, what amazing stories. This one's beautiful. This one's really up. And let's finish it. They're stories. Now I can put this down, and I can function from my intuition, from my creativity, and not be subject to the limiting ideas, philosophies, values, theories, and stories that I picked up from my past, from my culture, from society, from the politicians, from everyone. You can drop all of that. You can just put it aside and just function in the present, fully knowing yourself. That's the ultimate use of these medicines. Okay. So, what if I told you that the answer to that comes when you stop asking questions, when your mind is off? And if your mind is on, asking questions like, "Who am I? Why am I here? What's the meaning of life?" That's you pressing the talk button on the walkie-talkie, and the answer can't come through. So you need to be able to enter a state where you can just go in present, no mind. So my question to you is, with all of your experiences, are you aware of moments when you are awake? So you're not like, snoring. Your body's awake. You're relaxed. You're not feeling any emotions, and your mind is off, and you're just present, and you're just looking out through your eyes, hearing through your ears, feeling through your body, smelling through your nose. Okay. And then your mind comes on, right? And you have thoughts, you have feelings, you have ambitions, you have questions about life and all of that.
Yes.
So you can use the medicines to answer all the questions about why your mind is on, not to answer questions like, why am I here? Or what's the meaning of life? That is, for me, from my perspective, from my experience, that's the wrong way to use the medicines, because you'll get answers, and the answers will be projected from the mind, and they'll always be about. They'll never be clear. There'll always be thoughts. The way to get to those answers, the way that I get to those answers, and I've been tuned into these answers for a little over 10 years now, is that I use the medicines to complete all of my unfinished thoughts and to drop all the questions that I cannot answer with my mind. There are certain things that cannot be understood with the mind. You can write poems about life, about love, about God and spirit and meaning, and you can watch movies, but they're always about. You'll never have a 1 + 2 = 2 answer, because the mind can't do that. Just like my eyes can't hear music, and my nose can't see colors, and I can walk on my hands, but I'd rather walk on my feet, and I'd rather use my hands for something more sensitive, like using chopsticks or playing a guitar. I can use my mind to think about certain things, but I can't use it to understand the bigger picture. I can only use it to understand what falls into logic and reasoning. So the only way for me to get there is to figure out, why is this mind still on? What stories do I need to complete? I'm 50 years old. I'm 60 years old. I've had a great life. I've had some ups. I've had downs. And now I want to just complete. Can I just complete these stories and start fresh? Tabula rasa, clean slate. If I was just here, present, mind off, what would I experience? And there are things that, there are unconscious triggers of our mind that are there because we imprinted them pre-verbally. And no amount of regular meditation or vipassana or shamanic journeys will clear them, unless you go in knowing how to stop your mind, how to be present from a state of no mind, and go in there, stop your mind, and then see what comes up. And then ask yourself, because you're watching the thought, you're watching the feeling, you're watching the memory come by, and say, great, what do I need to learn from this? How do I complete it and put it away? And then it completes and puts away. And then the next one comes up. And you go step by step until they're clear. And when they're clear, you just wait. The answers will come through. The answers come through, but not from knowledge. They don't come through psychologically. They come through from a deeper place, from a silence. Does that make sense? That's how I tap into it. I can't ask a question and get the answer with my head. I have to ask myself, how do I shut this off, shut it off, and then I get the answers come through. There's no questions, but you need to have a question mark. In other words, you have to stay open to whatever reality, whatever you want to call it, existence, God, whatever it is, the answers need to come through. So you can't be closed. You can't say, there's no question, there's no answers, I believe in nothing. And you have to go, okay, I'm open, but I'm not gonna ask any questions. I'm just gonna stay present in a state of openness and listen. And just listen and see what comes through, and don't judge it.
Okay.
Don't judge it. One beautiful way to do a journey is to sort of pretend that you're You ever gone inner tubing, right? You're sitting on an inner tube and you're on a river and it's a beautiful day and the river is slowly taking you around bends and turns. And you go around this bend and you see a beautiful tree and you go around that bend and then there's like a deer or, you know, a squirrel or whatever. And you can go on that type of journey with these medicines where you just go, okay, I'm just going to flow with it. And whatever happens, I'm going to acknowledge it. But if I don't need to go into it, I'm just going to go, this memory, this idea, this experience. And it'll take you in a non-linear way, almost in a dream-like manner. You're in a dream state. You're in a conscious, intentionally created conscious dream state. And you set the intention to discover, what can I learn beyond mind with full awareness? That's the most interesting, one of the most intelligent intentions you can have for a journey with a psychoactive like this medicine. What can I learn that I don't know with my head? What can I learn like with my heart? What can I learn with whatever is behind my heart, deeper than my heart? And for that, you just need to be able to learn how. You already said you know it. So next question. You said you are aware of moments when you're present from a state of no mind. Next question. Do you know how to get there intentionally if you need to in the next 5 seconds, 5 minutes, 5 hours, or 5 days? What would you do to be able to just be fully present? Do you know what to do? You can do it in a breath. Can I show you right now? Let's do a simple breathing exercise. I just want to show you something right now. See if you can get this. That'll be so amazing for you. You ready? Really easy. I'm gonna count to 5 like this, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna inhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold for 1 second. Exhale 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold for a second. Inhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold for a second. Exhale 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now you keep doing that, watching my fingers. And what I want you to do is when you get to the top and the bottom of each breath, I want you to notice what happens to your mind.
Okay.
What happens at the top of each breath and at the bottom of each breath? That's the zone. So you've been doing this unconsciously your entire life. Now, just breathe and just pause your breath for a second in any moment, and you'll see that your mind stops instantly. No, it's like so simple. People are like, I need these special techniques. It's like, dude, it's right there in your breath. That's what the Buddha means when he says, watch your breath. Notice what happens to your mind with your breath, right? So with this, go through the course, do the exercises, and the emergency process will just blow your mind out for minutes at a time. And just get comfortable with being in that space. Do it a few times, and then do it as easily and gently as possible. It's not an ego trip. It's not like I can do it for 15 minutes, I can do it for 15 hours. It's just, my mind stops instantly with each breath. Like it just stops. And I get used to that. There's nobody here. There's no sense of self. And you can get to a point where you can feel your heartbeat in your entire body at once. When you can get there, something happens. And when you can get there and get comfortable with it, you recognize that there's a silence between your heartbeats. That silence between your heartbeats that you can literally feel and hear in your entire body when you just sit in meditation gently and quietly, that's the gateway to your intuition. That's the gateway to creativity, enlightenment, fully present being. That's how we get there. And it's not hard to get there. The challenge is that our mind has a million unconscious on buttons that keep turning back on. Right. So the real work for someone like you, you've gotten to the space, you recognize this, is not to try to get there. It's to figure out what you're doing, because you're doing it unconsciously, to pull yourself out. Because you were born without a mind. Everyone's born in a state of no mind. You have a brain, you have eyes, you have a nose, you got a belly button, you got a butt, right? You got cheeks, you got ears, but you don't have a mind. Mind accumulates. It's a hypnotic repetition patterns. And all of our thoughts are triggered by fears and desires, and they're cross-linked. You're afraid of what you desire what you're afraid of not having what you desire to stop having fears. It's all cross-linked. And these are the on buttons that keep going. So the most valuable tool, once you know how to be, once you go, hey, I exist from a state of no mind, and I have a mind that turns on all the time. The only thing to do is, okay, how do I complete whatever is in here so it can just stay off and come on when I need it? And there's conscious things you can do, like pay your bills, and if you were mean to your mother, apologize, or to your lover or whatever, right? These are things you can do. But there's unconscious stuff that you use the medicines to get in and clear out. That's the most valuable use for these tools. And yes, you're going to have past lives and experience them. You're going to experience, dancing and flying and making love to angels. You're going to meet your demons and your monsters. That's all good. That's all part of the mind. All those stories are known. When all those stories are known, everything goes quiet. Does that make sense? And when everything goes quiet, your intuition goes on, your creativity goes on, all meaning comes in. It's like you're divinely connected now, because you're not pressing the talk button on your walkie-talkie. An example of how well you need to know yourself, I need to ask you a personal question. I ask you a personal question. Do you know how many toes you have?
2.
You know how many toes you have? 10, right?
Yeah,
when's
10.
the last time you counted? Do you know all your thoughts, all your feelings, your fears, your insecurities, as well as your toes? How many toes you have? Or there's some things there that you just kind of keep out of the way. You just don't look at them, right? There's some nails you don't clip, right? There's some things that we just don't go back there. Oh, there's some stuff from the past that we just kind of, we can ignore it. We can watch TV, or we can have a drink, or we can go out with friends, or we can smoke a joint, or, right? We don't have to look at everything, right? These are the things that keep turning your mind on. This is what these medicines are good for going in and completing the things that are incomplete. And we have to be able to find them. You have to be able to know every thought, every feeling, every experience, and complete it for your entire life, all these years that you've lived. Once these are complete, mind turns off. Not before. To find the sources of them. Just like let me ask you another personal question. Yep. You're done up to now. You can go, well, if you want to, but it's a beautiful life to have ahead of time. That you might as well use it, because you get to function at your peak intuitive enlightened performance from that moment on. The only thing that prevents us from being fully present is our mind that keeps turning on. We have a million on buttons in our walkie-talkie that we're pressing, and it's our incomplete thoughts and feelings, it's our beliefs, it's our hopes, it's our dreams, it's our fears, it's our guilt, it's our shame, it's our desires, it's our ambition. And these are all interesting things, but they prevent us from a higher intelligence. They prevent us from our intuition, from our connectivity, from our oneness. You will know what you're here to do when you stop projecting and you start listening. There's a beautiful story. It's an old funny story, right? This mystic story about this man who wants to find God, right? So he leaves his home and he chases after God all around, all around, all around. And he never finds God because God is waiting for him at his front door and is knocking on his door. And the guy's never home and can't answer the door. And it's a, you know, it's a metaphor for here we are looking for answers, and all we got to do is just be present, and the answers come through. It's like, imagine a fish that somehow gets it into his little fish brain that it's thirsty and that he needs to go find a water fountain. How silly would that be? A thirsty fish looking for water with no clue that it's surrounded by water. And all the meaning, all the joy, all the everything, all the divinity of this amazing existence, we're surrounded by it. You can't leave the universe. You can't leave the presence of godliness or whatever you want to call it unless you're in projection mode. And if you're in projection mode, it's like you're in a movie theater and you forget, right now you're talking to me and you're not aware of anything else in your room except what's happening on the screen. And then I remind you and you remember that, oh, there's other things around you and you're on a seat and your bum is on a chair and your feet are somewhere, right? You remember your mouth, you might be thirsty, so you take a sip of water. But while you're in your mind engaged in your projection, we forget, we tune everything else out. So we're unconsciously tuning out all the answers to all the questions all the philosophers keep asking, because the simple act of asking, the doing, the thinking of asking, why am I here? What am I here for? Prevents you from experiencing and knowing. And you have an entire life of direct experiences. And to reference back to some experiences that you may have had or that you have had that have been painful and difficult for you, when you can enter those from a state of no mind with an open heart, and ayahuasca is a beautiful medicine for that. What happened with your wife, what's happened with whatever your parents, your siblings, your children, with you, you go in there from a state of, I wish to experience this no mind, open heart. And the grace of being human is that those poisons will transform into honey. They will become your superpowers. You will have lessons. You will have things to share. You'll be able to help people. There will be an instantaneous ability to create meaning and to share your worst pains as your greatest gifts. But that only happens mind off, open heart, present awareness. A great goal. And then the final goal is to have no more goals, just be present. Mm-hmm. But the goal now, let's close all unfinished business. You'll find that you'll start automatically finding yourself present, state of no mind, and light starts coming in. Creativity starts coming in. You've had flashes of intuition. You've had flashes of creativity. You've had moments where maybe you were lost in life and didn't know what to do, and then suddenly, it just made sense. That's because mind was off in that moment, and you give up thinking about it. You're like, I just don't even know what to do anymore, and that's when life comes through. When you can just pause the mind, open the heart, and just go, okay, thy will be done, so to speak, right? Like whatever, whatever the universe has to offer, let's say I'm supposed to accept it. I accept it. Just be present. Go in with an open heart. Let your mind drop back. Allow your mind to go back. Listen to what your heart has to say, and do the ayahuasca first and foremost for the flavor of it. Just first appreciate and accept the intensity of the flavor. And then allow it to wash away your mind for a few hours, open your heart, and just surrender to the flow. And you'll learn something that you can only learn if you do that. Your other option is to go, I want to talk to God, or I want to dance with the angels, or I want to have meaning. And you can force your mind to use this dream tool to create the meaning that you want. But it's going to be your projection. Does that make sense? And you can do both. But there's something very valuable in being able to go and surrender to the experience and say, okay, I've been around, for me, I've been around 53 years. I've seen a lot of shit. I've had some good I've had highs and lows, and all right, what comes next? How do I accept, I surrender. What can I do? And that's when all the magic came through. That's how I discovered how everything makes sense. So that's why I'm passionate about sharing this to anyone who's interested in hearing, because it's all within you. Your inner silence, you know it's there. Your heartbeat is there, right? Your toes are there, and your deepest, darkest experiences are there. Accept them. Open your heart to them. See what you can learn from them. And you may purge. The medicine can help you purge, but you'll purge out the fear, the anxiety, the yuckiness, and you can accept it later.
Why do you do that?
Why? I can tell you why. For the past 10 years, I have been at my peak, alone, and within 6 months, I found my best friend, partner, soulmate, and wife. We've been together since the day we met, a little over 10 years ago. And 4 years ago, we adopted the daughter of her sister, who was being miserably abused by her mother and her grandparents, and she's just added to our lives incredibly. And I can tell you, honest truth, the only thing that can make my life better in this crazy world is more people finding themselves and knowing themselves and having the best possible life. There's nothing that I can do personally that will improve the quality of my life, except, wouldn't it be nice to be surrounded by happy, healthy, beautiful, growing people? Imagine a world where like everybody's like excited about knowing themselves instead of like looking for a distraction. Concerned, like clearly focused on cleaning up trash, recycling, making the world a better place, finding alternative ways to have clean energy and clean food, and using the best of science and technology. Like, couldn't we have like an amazing paradise to live in? That's the only thing that drives me. I'm at my peak. I personally alone, I can die tomorrow. My life can't get better for myself as an individual, but you are another version of me and everybody else out there. And anyone that can find themselves and learn how to be free and use your gifts, that makes the world better for all of us. So that's what drives me. We can do work here in Thailand and in Peru and in the US and with more Splats. And I've never met a more empowered group than Splats. So anything a Splat wants, I'm happy to like. John Trey and I, my partner and I, we joined the Splats 4 years ago. We did it for 1 year, and we were so blown away, and we got so much out of it that we've been processing and really creating programs from what we learned from Tony and Sage and the Splats, so that we can be of better service to people of this caliber. Everything I teach, somebody else will come by. There's more. Whatever you'll learn, somebody will be able to go beyond. We did it for 1 year, and we're thinking of restarting either this next year or the following, because we got so much, like you know, like you have a taste of something so delicious, and you take your time to process it and digest it. It's such a rich experience. You got to step away, and then you can come back, right?
Yeah.
It's like I need to sleep well, and then I need to have a day full of sunlight, and then it's too much light. I need to close my eyes. I need to go into the dark and close my eyes for a while, right? It's like that. And listen, you're once a Splat, always a Splat. That doesn't change. You get that, right? Like immediately, somebody sees a post, I see it, I answer. I got Splats come and visit and work with me here. I go visit them. There's infinite collaborations to happen. So. And everything you've processed and everything you've learned, with your capacity to reset and reboot your mind, you'll be able to process it faster and deeper and better. Because everything Tony and Sage teach and everything we do as Splats is 100% valid and true, and it gets you to a certain point. There's a beyond that you can't get to with mind. So Tony teaches us how to empower our minds to the peak of what can be done, and he's really like, he's got it. Like there are few people that can use the power of their minds, their willpower, like Tony does. But there's something that you can only do when you let go of mind. And that doesn't mean I'm not using my mind. I obviously need to think to create my programs. There's a lot of intelligence, a lot of thinking going behind these programs, right? So it's not like the old Eastern thing of you drop your mind and you go live in a cave and you renounce money and love and life, and you never do anything again. That's that doesn't work today. Today, you create the most powerful mind you have, and then you do a full shutdown reset. You reboot it, and now you're free. And then whenever you need to think about something, you've got full mind power. You've got full bandwidth because you've cleared everything from your past. Imagine being able to clear a million unconscious thought you've collected in your entire lifetime, and still having the bandwidth, and still being able to take massive action. So I today I can do 100 times more with 1% of what I could use before when I was pushing with my mind to make everything happen. I'm at least 10,000% more efficient because I'm using full band power. I'm using full mind when I need it. And I'm not using my mind to think about anything that the mind can't do. I think about mind for business, for creativity, for patterns of abundance, for implementation, for communication, right? I'm communicating with you in a way that helps you reach a space. That's what mind's for, definitely. Language, numbers, but not for why am I here? What's the meaning of life? How do I become a better being? That's not what my mind is for. Mind is for doing, not for being. So that I was like, well, first, why don't you just clear the one you've got? It's so good. Don't mess with it. Just first clear it. And then if you want to improve on it, okay, try that. But you've already got like, most people, I'll tell you, most people, and this is a compliment, all right? Most people are functioning with at most 1% of their mind power. And some people are like, what? How dare you say I'm that stupid? I'm like, no, I'm saying that if you clear your mind, you could be working with 100% of your mind. And you're only using one because 100% is like stuff that's like not for the mind. Ask yourself very gently, very holistically, just ask yourself and say, what do I, this thinking, feeling body need to be more clear, more present, state of no mind, open-hearted, present in reality? What do I need to learn? What stories can I finish? That could potentially be a most powerful intention for your journey. And just whatever comes, comes. Whatever comes, just accept it. It'll be something from when last week or 6 months ago, 6 years ago, when you were 5 years old, when you were, newborn, and you were hungry and you wanted your mom's left hip because it was bigger, but she gave you the right one, and that caused the trauma. It's silly. You just never know what comes up. But all of this adds up, and when you clear it, it allows space for creativity. It allows space for intuition. And you have creativity. Everyone has creativity and intuition.
Of course.
And the way to do that is this has to be off, not forced, but just completed. And this has to be open. Those are the two requirements. This is off, this is open. But you can turn this off by jumping into a bucket of ice. It'll pause for a second, but it's violent, so it'll start up again with more power. He doesn't meditate. He hasn't learned how to turn this off. He hasn't recognized the power of doing that. He's learned that he can just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. But there's consequences like sleep apnea, like physical disorders, like pain. These are the consequences of pushing your mind too hard. I discuss it in the course. And lovingly, I love and respect Tony and Sage deeply. What they're doing is such an immense service. And there's something additive, which is once you learn how to master this, learn how to untangle the mind, learn how to let it slow down. It's an amazing day, the day that you just wake up and your mind turns off all by itself and you just see. There's something you can see that you can't see when your mind is on. That's why they call it a third eye. It's almost like being able to be blind and suddenly seeing. And life changes. Let me ask you a question. When the lights are on and the doorway is clear, isn't it true that you just simply walk through the doorway and you never even think about trying to smash through the wall? Even if you've never been there before, you're going through a place you've never been, the lights are on, there's a doorway, it's clearly there, and you just simply walk through it. Everybody does. Nobody's like, I'm going to try to smash through the wall next to it. Nobody does that. Right. So there's an intelligence. There's an awareness, an unconscious awareness that everybody has. I'll point it out to you. Have you ever set an alarm and woken up just before the alarm? Yeah. So how does your body know to wake up before the alarm? You're unconscious. You're like drooling, snoring. And you have an unconscious awareness that is tracking time and that awakens you. You don't like suddenly say to yourself, time to wake up, and you just wake up, right?
Yeah.
That's how it is. Or you're asleep,
Yeah.
and somebody comes by and whispers, Rafael, and you don't wake up. But they say, and you wake up. Right? If you hear your name, there's an awareness that we have. That awareness, unconscious, is the awareness that needs to awaken. You are already psychologically enlightened. You are already psychologically awake and aware. And that's the first step. There's an unconscious awareness that all of us have in our bodies that needs to awaken. But here's the thing. The only time that awareness is available is when this is off and this is open. That's the sprouting condition. So if you prime yourself every day, nonstop, and then you never allow this to shut off by itself, that unconscious awareness, which is your intuition, your creativity, your highest intelligence as a thinking, feeling being, that never really gets a chance to grow. It doesn't have room to grow. The sprouting conditions for the seed of enlightenment, of spiritual enlightenment, of consciousness, of super consciousness, those conditions sprout. Those seeds sprout when mind is off, heart is open, body is healthy. Those are the conditions. Does that make sense? Yeah. Do you like flowers? Do you like plants and flowers? Yeah. Have you noticed that just about any seed that you planted, just about anywhere, if you give it some water, some light, some soil, it'll grow green. Just about anything. But if you want it to flower, it needs certain conditions. Isn't that true? Right. So
Yes.
your creative flowerings, your intuitive flowerings, your supraconscious flowerings require certain conditions. The first condition is that this body needs to be well taken care of. If you're poisoning it all the time, it's going to flower less than if you're feeding it healthy food, physically. Emotionally, you need to be complete emotionally. You can't repress anger and fear and hatred. You can't just push them down and say these are undesirable, unresourceful emotions. And because these are, you use your mind to repress yourself. So these are mental repressions. You need to have free-flowing emotions. So you need to, if you need to be sad, you need to be able to be sad. If you need to be angry, you grab a cushion and you beat it up. You bite a towel and you scream into it. Obviously, you don't hurt anyone, but you don't want to repress yourself emotionally or psychologically. You want to be able to have a healthy body, fully expressed emotions. And then your thoughts need to be complete. Those are the three requirements. When those three requirements are there, there's a flowering of consciousness. There's a flowering of intuition.
Clear.
Your mind has to be clear of incomplete thoughts, right? Most people's minds are like, and I describe it as in the course. Imagine walking into a library that's been hit by an earthquake or a tornado. There's books everywhere. Everything's spattered around. That's like most people's minds are like. So what you do is you use meditation, you use medicines. You go in, you pick up a story, you look at it, you complete it, and you put it on the shelf. Then you pick up the next one, complete it, put it on the shelf. There's a million books in your library that you've collected through your entire life. And you inherited from your parents and your grandparents, like I said, all the way back to Moses and Abraham and the first monkey that fell out of a tree. So all these stories are there. Finish them up. They're beautiful stories. I have nothing against them. They're stories. Finish them, complete them. I can tell you an honest truth as a fact. Between these ears, behind these eyes, there's zero questions, doubts, struggles, challenges, insecurities about anything in my life up to this moment. There is no voice in my head having another argument with another voice in my head. There's no picture in my head that isn't organized, clear, categorized. Like everything in my life up to this moment is complete. There's one thing that's incomplete. I had to file an amendment for some taxes for a corporation that I had some issues with because my wife is a partner and she's a non-US citizen, and those documents get filed on December 15th. And once they're through that, part of my mind will shut off. But other than that, I'm up to date in the moment. Does that make sense? My taxes are paid, my bills are paid, my rent is paid, my businesses are running, I'm cash flow positive. My wife is healthy and beautiful. My daughter is like just a blessing. I'm healthy. I'm having conversations with intelligent people, like, beautiful people like yourself that I've never met before are willing to talk to me for hours. And I'm just this crazy guy, on the other side of the world. Everything's good. That way I can think about how to make the world a better place, how to create new interesting businesses. Does that make sense? That's where you want to get to. That's what knowing yourself means.